Hi. I'm in the process of dealing with some personal things, but I wanted to take a moment to talk a bit about Castlevania Nocturne. Personally, if you like the series, you like it. I've gone on record for stating how I wanted an animated depiction of Castlevania Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night and got neither. It's not difficult to create a series utilizing source material and set pieces of the games while expanding out the already existing story, and yet no one seems to want to do that. Of course, when I stated my issues, Twitter's best and brightest descended upon me thinking I was easy prey. They thought wrong.
I am Eula! I'm nobody's bitch! You are mine.
But of course, I have to give special attention to one particular Twitter account called Saved You a Click Video Games. The account holder felt a certain way about the criticisms of Nocturne and decided to make a tweet thread about this, which is fine. Discourse is important, and seeing both sides of an argument is equally important for those willing to take the information and make up one's own mind about things. However, it seems as if the arguments being lobbed at the critics seem done in a rather disingenuous way.
Nocturne takes place during the French Revolution. Niche Gamer complains about a specific clip where Annette gives a speech about her slave uprising to encourage the French revolutionaries. Racism is not mentioned in the clip/speech and has little presence in that episode. Now Niche Gamer will imply that this is irrelevant, it fits the time period, and that it has nothing to do with fighting vampires. The show is still about fighting vampires, but what they've also done is collect a bunch of tweets of people complaining about this. A lot of the tweets complain about the animation and voice acting. If you think it's gotten worse, then fair, but it's clear that a lot of tweets included in the article are bizarre. Check out the middle one. They thought this was okay to include. It's just full of weird stuff. This guy thinks slavery and the French Revolution is the same as current year talking points. Second guy here doesn't understand that actors can talk in whatever language they want and that the audience can fill in the blanks. Gay race communism?
Now, of course, I can't speak for any of the other tweeters, or for Niche Gamer for that matter. However, thank you for including me in that article. I feel like the several people hiding behind this gimmick account are trying to use some of the more abrasive tweets to dispel all criticisms across the board without objectively looking at the tweets or the people making them. But in order to explain why my statement is in fact accurate, we must set the stage. First of all, let's take a moment to talk about the character in question, Annette, who had apparently overdosed on tanning pills and grew a hairstyle suspiciously familiar to one of the season's writers. When they announced this change of the character, you could hear the collective groans from space, and for good reason. On the topic of race swapping, especially in this current period of history, it is always tied to some ulterior motive. Even sites like The Verge discuss how race and sex swap remakes such as Ocean's 8, What Men Want, and Ghostbusters 2016 give unique opportunities to explore ideas about sexual or racial roles and politics by placing characters of different backgrounds in familiar, often male-dominated contexts. When considering this, what is there to stop a person from believing that this change is anything different? Especially when Castlevania's Season 1 through 4 showrunner Adi Shaknar had this to say.
As much as the show is Castlevania, it's not a tie-in to a video game. This is our own interpretation of Castlevania. Call it the Castlevania Cinematic Universe. Characters may pop up a little differently. They might pop up exactly the same. Events may play out exactly the same. Things may cause them to deviate. The big thing going into this show is that there's a master plan to the narrative we're devising.
So it was less about following the source material and the lore already established, and more about following narratives and interpreting your own vision of the series using the skin suit of the IP. Gotcha. Now, you say I might be exaggerating, but the current season showrunners and the directors say something similar. Let's take a look at that.
We're keeping the core elements that we introduced, but realistically exploring how those things would have evolved over time. Supernatural elements notwithstanding, the class issues, battles and alliances from this period of American and French history are pretty accurately depicted in the show. It opened up so many fun doors for us to talk through and play with. It's history, but with monsters, co-director Sam Dietz said with a laugh. adding that he thinks the connection between wealth and vampirism probably resonates pretty strongly with 2023 audience members, who resent that in real life there are few people who get very rich at the expense of those less fortunate.
Co-director Adam Dietz chimes in with the following.
However, while it takes place in the same year and region, the game does not incorporate the French Revolution into its storyline while the streaming series leans into that. Sam Dietz added, obviously it's an adaptation and some things have changed, but many of the elements, many of the bullet points are still present. Maybe in a slightly shifted state, but they are still the jumping off point for a lot of the story beats.
So we understand that the people in charge are playing fast and loose with the IP. They're changing established characters, they're changing locations, possibly to make the themes relatable for this current disenfranchised audience. Hence the convenience of making your characters Haitian to take advantage of class warfare and slavery themes. Two things that are as far away from the storyline as possible and have very little to do with the Belmont family's ongoing war with Dracula. Even the writers seem to be on board with this. Let's take a look at the things that Zadwa Nyoni has said in her BBC interview.
When you enable young people to have a platform and to speak their truth, there is an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom they can give over. As a teenager, she was frustrated by people who assumed young people weren't empowered or weren't political or weren't socially aware, when we were.
So if you didn't catch the caption on the picture, she states that I feel seen, and we have to continue to feel seen as people of color. A sentiment that seems to persist in the narrative. Annette goes from being a captured noblewoman's daughter, who Dracula takes a liking to, a la Mina Harker, to an escaped slave sorceress who serves to downplay the main characters at every turn. Which is probably why they chose to delete that one saucy tweet, because the intention was a bit too on the nose. And the funny part is, I didn't even have to do this much digging to pick up on the themes that are at play here. Why would you ironically alter a Slavic noblewoman into a Haitian slave and still keep her name intact? Why is Count Alrox now an Aztec vampire with a German name? What is an Aztec even doing in Europe in the 1700s? More importantly, why is he a hot twink and not a bald, emaciated, stalking menace like the Max Shrek character from the film Nosferatu? The easy answer here is that you clearly want to appease your Tumblrite overlords and not the fans of the original series, which is why characters are doing impassioned speeches about Viva la Revolution and saying fuck like it's going out of style instead of acting as if they really exist in the 1700s and had decorum. Richter is reduced to an immature edgelord with a sailor's vernacular who has panic attacks as if people during that time period did not witness death, famine, and sickness on the daily. This seems more like 2023 than 1792. And yet, when you point that out, the Twitter literacy squad can only respond with, "Hey yo, hold up, that's racist and shit." Or some variation of not having the writing skill to take the source material to do the exact very thing that Warren Ellis half-ass attempted to do before he got Me Too'd out of the picture last season. Maybe I'm asking for too much from modern media, but if it weren't for the high standards, I would probably be retarded enough to sop up the slop and call it cream. Maybe that's why a gimmick Twitter account couldn't see the forest for the trees and felt offended that even black people are tired of pop culture trying to push slavery and revolution as narrative replacements for deep storytelling. Perhaps this is why I tend to work in analysis and you tend to dabble in synopsis. Perhaps you should probably stick to just synopsis. Thank you, and I'll see you next boss fight.